What's up, you guys? Welcome to this week's video. In front of me, I have one of those parametric wave wall designs. And I'm going to show you guys how to recreate this in SWOOD. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but it has been trending on Instagram for a little while now. I'm actually pretty late to the party on this one, but I wanted to show you guys the steps that I took to recreate this in SWOOD and kind of the perks of using SWOOD for designing something like this. So stay tuned. Okay, so to start off with, we're going to create this as a frame because I want this to be flexible when I input it into my final design. I want to be able to change the width of the feature, the height of the feature, and also the depth. So we'll start off in our frames library and we're going to make a copy. Well, actually, we're going to make a new frame. So we'll go come over here, select new, select SWOOD, SWOOD frame. And it's going to ask us to rename it. So we're going to call it Wave Wall 2 because I've already made a Wave Wall 1. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead, edit that, and it brings us into our frame model. So what I want to start off with, I want to create a back, and on the back I want that to be a thicker material. We're going to make the back support be 3/4 inch and the perpendicular panels that are resembling that wave art are going to be 1/2 inch material. So to start off with, we're going to add that panel, and I made this out of MDF. You're going to see that in the future, or like for some of the fasteners, it'd probably be better to make out of plywood. So if you guys do try this yourself, I do recommend that as opposed to MDF. That plywood is just going to be a bit stronger. But yeah, we're going to start off with this 3/4 inch MDF. And this is actually a material, so we want to come to panels. And we're going to right click on that 3/4 inch MDF, insert a copy. And we're going to come over to this new panel positioned and select the back because we want a back panel. So one thing that I've been trying to implement into my designs is trying to orient these panels the right direction right off the bat. So that way, like on my longer side, I want that to be my length as opposed to my width. And if you click on this little gear here, it takes you to your options, and there's some shortcuts that allow you to edit those. So I could change my top face and also change my front face as well. And you could tell when I hit T here, like if I click on the panel and hit T, the top face is this blue shaded side as opposed to the white side. So as of right now, the Z up for this panel is facing that blue side. So if I wanted the origin to be facing towards me, like to the front of the model, I'd want it there. But actually for this one, I want that Z position to be facing the back. So I'm going to hit T again, and you can see that blue changes sides. And then also, I want to make sure that my length is oriented the right way. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to hit R for rotate, and I'm going to find that color difference. So you see here this like peach color as opposed to white. That is representing my length edge, or front face as they call it. But basically it aligns with the length. So we're going to press R to rotate that because my panel is going to be longer this way as opposed to this way. So I want from this edge to this edge to be my length. And as you can see, that's there. So I'll go ahead, make that my length, and I can hit C as a shortcut to go ahead and constrain all those panels in place and just do a quick visual check to make sure those are all aligned, which they are. So I'm going to go ahead, hit the checkpoint, and that panel's in there. So cool. So now what I want to do, I want to create the general size of my frame before I add in my 1/2 inch material. So what I'll do is jump over to SWOOD Design, and I'm going to go to Edit Frame. And I just want to make this generally the size that's going to work for me. So for width, why don't we make this, we'll make this 70 inches. For height, we'll do let's do 40. And then for depth, we're gonna make this 15 for now and see how that looks. So basically, I made it this size. This is gonna be the length of my feature wall. And then this is gonna be the height of the feature itself. And then finally, this is about how far I want those panels to stick out. And we're gonna be cutting them down to a feature anyway, or more of a geometric design. So we can kind of overextend that, even if I made this 20, which maybe that would be better. It'll give us more wiggle room with that geometric cut. So cool. The size of those panels are located. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're going to drop in our first 1/2 inch material. So we're gonna insert a copy, select the left side here, and I just want my longer side to represent my length. So I'll go ahead and hit that R. And so right now that front face is being represented here. I want it represented here. So I'll hit R until I see that there. And then that is aligned the way I want it to be. Constrain this to the front face of this back panel. And then finally I'll hit C again to constrain all this in place. And actually I'm gonna go ahead and delete this mate because I want this floating in space, and I'm gonna define where that mate is manually. So cool. We'll go ahead, hit check mark. It comes in as a wonky material, so I'm going to go ahead and drop in my 1/2 inch MDF material. I'll go ahead and save that. And you know what? I think this 1/2 inch MDF, I haven't assigned a material to that. So just for ease in the future, I'll go ahead and drop that material on there. So that way when I drop in a copy of that MDF, it'll be the right material right off the bat. Okay, cool. So this panel's still floating in space. Basically, I just want to constrain this. So I'll go ahead and make a mate from this face over to this left plane, and I'm going to give it a distance. Let's do a distance of 2 inches for now, and we can change that in the future if we want to. So cool. Maybe, you know what, I'm going to change this to 1 inch instead. 2 inches seems a little bit far. I don't know if I actually changed that. So it's still 2. Let's make this 1. There we go. That looks a little bit better. All right, sweet. So we have this constrained. If we look at the bottom of my model, and I'll get out of the way here, we can see that that is fully defined. So yeah, this is, we could make a copy and do the same thing over and over and over again. But as you could see with my last model, there was like 30 of those 1/2 inch panels. And I don't want to do this process 30 times. Instead, I'm going to deviate from like standard SWOOD practice, and I'm going to do a linear pattern, not of the part, but of the body. And I'll show you guys how to do that. So basically, I'm going to come in, select the panel that I want to do the linear pattern on, and I'm going to select right click and select edit panel, or edit part actually. And then what I'm going to do, I have it saved to my S key, but I'm going to create a linear pattern, and this is for bodies of this panel. So I'll select that there. It's going to ask me a couple of questions. I always kind of like mess this up on the first try, so bear with me on this. So basically, the direction that I want this panel to go, I want this to go to the right here, and I want it up to this reference, which I don't think it's going to let me select since it is, that is a good point. Let me see if I could select something else. Maybe this edge. Nope. Let's delete this. Let's make this the direction. There we go. Or no, this is for, we want this the direction. There we go. And then we want this to be up to this reference. That works. And we want to unselect this features and faces, and we want to select bodies. So we're going to click on this guy here. And we want the selected reference to be this front face of this panel here. And now there's like a million instances of that. We don't want that. We want the spacing in between. Let's do 0.5 for now and see if how that looks. Maybe 1 inch, since that material is 1/2 inch already. And that looks pretty good. There's a lot of instances of that. Let's hit check and see how that looks. So yeah, this is a lot of panels, but I think it should be fine for now. Okay, so cool. We have our linear pattern of those 1/2 inch panels. So as of right now, there's now like, let's see, let's double check how many bodies there are. So there's 69 of these panels in a line here. And this is what's going to create the wall art, the geometric shape. So now we need to jump in and start editing these panels so that way the art comes through and it has a geometric shape. So we're going to right click on this, select open part and position. And basically what that did, it isolated this part to its own part file, but kept the position the same so that way I know which side that I'm referencing. So I want to start creating the shape that I'm going to cut out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click on this side of this panel and I'm going to create a sketch. And I'm going to look, I'll hit the S key and I'll search in spline. So that way I can start creating the general shape of what I want to cut here. So yeah, let's go ahead and delete this line, and we want to drag this up to here. And we're just going to constrain the 2 edges of this spline in shape and just kind of manipulate these little points to represent the starting point of our design. So maybe something like this. Yeah, maybe I'll even make it a little less aggressive for now because I'm going to edit that in the future. Okay, so I have the start of my shape here. I'm going to go ahead, accept that for my sketch, and I'm going to jump over to surfaces. So if you guys don't see this surfaces tab, what you can do is right click here and hit customize, and there should be a new tab option here, so you can select that and find surfaces on here. And when you select surfaces, it'll show up when you close out of here as a permanent tab. I pretty rarely use surfaces whenever I'm working in like the woodworking industry. But for this instance, it is pretty cool how this works. So basically, I created that original sketch, which I'm going to create a surface out of, a mesh surface. So what I'll do, I'll select that edge of that sketch. I'm going to extrude this surface, and I'm going to extrude this through the all of the panels that I have created. And I'm actually going to do a extrude up to the left side of my frame. So I need to find that, or maybe my right side of my frame. Oh no, this is the right side of my part. You know what? Yeah, this is completely different. So never mind. What we're going to do, we're going to do it to the edge of this panel here. So what we'll do, we'll just double click on that and it'll change my direction to up to surface. And if that doesn't work, you can select this drop down and just select up to surface and select this one here. Okay, so when I do that, my surface cut has been created. It's kind of hard to tell because that material color is the same as the rest of my panels. And since it has nothing to do with the panels, I'm actually going to change this color. So what you can do, you can right click here, come to appearances and select surface extrude and just change that color to one that like works for you. I think I'll probably do this like grayish color here. So it's just easier for me to see there. So cool. I created that surface. And what I'll do, I'm going to go ahead and hide all of my surface bodies because I want to edit the surface to be a bit more geometric rather than, because like if I look at it at a side profile here, it's kind of boring and like there isn't any variability to that design, which I do want. I want some variability and I want it to be like aesthetically pleasing. So cool. What we'll do, we'll click on that surface. We're going to go to freeform. And it's going to show the mesh view of my design. And what you could do, you can drag this to increase your mesh density. I'm just going to keep mine at 11. You can get like super in depth and make this as like complex as you want. So like for really complex designs, I'd probably up that mesh density higher. But for me, I'll just keep it at 11. And what we're going to do, we're going to add some curves. So we're going to select this Add Curve button. And what that's going to do, it's going to allow me to place where I want to edit this mesh. So maybe what I'll do 2 places to edit running along this plane. And then I'm going to flip direction. And I'm going to do maybe 2, maybe I'll do 3. Cool. I'll right click to accept that. And now, I think I have to hit this, no, I have to unselect this Add Curves button. And now all those little lines that I dropped in, I can select it and select a specific point and drag that out to become more like geometrically interesting. So I can select this point, maybe push this one in a bit, and then come over here, drag this guy out a bit. All right, and this is getting pretty interesting. Maybe I'll grab this one out some more. And we don't have to go too crazy with this. I think this will work fine for what we're doing. Go ahead and hit select. And now we have a pretty interesting side profile of this design. So yeah. Just the basics here. You can make this as interesting as you want, but just for this video, the sake of this video, we're going to keep it pretty simple. Cool. So what we'll do, we'll unhide all of these other bodies, and we're going to create a cut out of these bodies from this surface body. And to do that, what you could do, select the S key and you can search up split. I have it saved to my library here, but you could do both. And we're going to select the trimming tool as that surface body, and our target bodies, we want all bodies here. So we'll go ahead, cut everything. It's going to create a really big design here. And basically we want all of these panels eliminated. And how we'll do that, what will be the best way to go about that here? Let's see. Has to be a quicker way to do this. This might take a second, but it'll take me longer to figure out how to do this all at once. So I'll just go through, click all this. I'll probably just fast forward this on the video. Basically what we want to do, we want to select all these panels, and we're going to consume these panels with the cut. And I'll show you guys how to do that. So boom, boom, boom. All of these are going away. Hopefully my computer can handle this computation. Awesome. All right, so all those are selected. So what we're going to do, we're going to select this consume cut bodies, and we're going to accept that process. And when we do that, we're left with just the side that we wanted to keep, and our geometric surface body is still here as well. So if we wanted to go ahead and hide this or just delete it, what we could do, we can right click it and delete the body. So now we're just left with our panels. So here we have just our geometric shape for our panel there. So boom, there is that. So cool. What we'll do, we'll go ahead and we'll accept all this. We're going to save this, and we're going to go back to our original assembly. So yeah, as you could see, we have this shape. And you know what? I feel like I have so many panels here at this point that my design is a bit too wide. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to edit my frame, and I'm going to drop this down to about half the width. Instead of 70, I'm going to make this 50. And when I do that, I may have to jump back in and edit some stuff because I deleted all of those bodies. Oh, yeah. It's because I referenced that one body, so I'll do that here. Okay, so that solved it. I basically was referencing a panel that I wasn't using anymore. But yeah, this is a bit less panels, and you know what? I think for my linear pattern also, I want to drop this down. Instead of 1 inch, maybe I'll do 1.5, just to keep this a bit more lightweight. And there's probably this issue again that I'm referencing a panel, so I'll select this one here. And I feel like this surface extrude is getting a little boring, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to edit this feature again, and I'm going to hide these bodies that I have. I'm going to make this a bit more interesting once again. We can roll back this, edit the feature. Basically, I'm just going to make this a bit more interesting, just like have some more like interesting geometrics to it. So we'll go ahead, drag this back a bit more. This is starting to look pretty cool. All right, let's drag this one. I feel like that is cool. Drag this over a bit. Let's see how this looks. And then we'll unhide the splits. Roll back this delete body. All right, yeah, and that's really getting interesting. Okay, cool. So we have our design here, our wave wall feature, and cool, so we can jump back over to our original design. Go ahead, close out of this, save our changes. And this takes us to our original design. And what we want to do, we want to create a fastening method between this panel and the like mounting back panel. And I went ahead and created a fastener for this, or like a fastening method. And how I did that, I created a connector. And the way that I made this connector, basically what it's doing is it's creating a little notch in this back panel, and it's creating an extrusion on this panel that allows it to just kind of like slot into place and drop down into place. So let me show you how that works. I'll right click on this P-trap pattern, and I'm going to insert a connector. And I'm just going to do it on one panel just to show you guys how this works here. Go ahead and accept. And as you can see, so maybe what we could do, we can do change the visual aspect here. So what we have, go ahead and hide this. And you know what, that's not super clear. So just keep it like this. So we have a cutout here on our base panel. And this is going to receive like the male portion insertion from that perpendicular pattern or perpendicular panel. So we have that here. I'll go ahead and unhide those other panels. And I'll show this one. So as you can see, there's like a male insertion here. And what's going to happen, I'll make this transparent, is this male side is going to come in, drop in, boom, just like this, and be able to slot into place. So that way we don't have to use like any sort of funky fastener there. This can be cut out on the CNC and pretty much can be like a cut in place. In 3D printing, they call it like print in place, where you create a model. You don't have to waste too much time on assembly. It just prints in place. You lift it off the bed and you have like a working model there. And this is kind of like a similar idea. You do have to assemble it, but you don't have to do any form of additional machining in order to make this jive. Basically, you just cut it out on the CNC. You mount this back panel to whatever you want to mount it to, and then you just drop in this perpendicular panel into place, slot it through there, drop it down, and there you go. So yeah, I'll kind of show you a couple of the features that have to do with that connector. So we have that here. We're going to right click and select Edit Connector. And if we wanted to, we can change the number of connectors that we want there. So if I want 3 of those little male connectors, we have that there as opposed to 2. I can also change the offset from the top and bottom there. So like, let's say instead of having this at what, it's like about 6 inches from the edge, I can make this 3, and it changes that offset. So all of this is parametrically driven and completely custom. Like, this was not included in the SWOOD library beforehand. This was something specific that I needed for this design that just kind of I could just drop into place and works really well for this specific situation. So cool. Yeah, I have that there. So now what I could do, I can come through and I can drop in that connector for each one of these instances here. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll insert connectors. And what we're going to do every other connector first, because I want to create an offset that's kind of just better for cutting on the CNC. And I'll show you guys what I mean. So basically I'm going through, selecting every other panel. And what we're going to do, we're going to make this one 3 inches from the top. And this is going to take a second. Cool. So all my connectors turned yellow. And all of those connectors are in there. And there should only be 2 iterations. Remember, this first one I changed that. So I'll go ahead, adjust that connector 1, switch that to 2. And what I'll do, I'll go ahead and drop all these into a folder just to organize that. So I'll call this 3-inch connector. Cool. And now we want to do the same thing. So we're going to do right click, insert connector. And we're going to do this for every other connector. So we're going to go in, drop this in. Every blue connector we want to make yellow. Boom, boom, all the way through. And we're going to switch this. Instead of 3, we're going to make this 5. Cool. Yeah, and that took way too long to edit again, so I'm just going to go ahead and accept. So this is 5-inch offset as opposed to 3. And as you can see, that's offset there. So that way, like when you go to machine this in place, it's not as cluttered and you have like more, I guess, like structural strength there. Like if these were all right next to each other, I feel like the structural integrity of this backboard, like it would be more likely to split down the middle here. Whereas like when it's offset, and probably like having an offset of even more, like maybe instead of like 3 and 5, I'd maybe want that at like 3 and like 8 or something. It's like further down here. Yeah, just to add some strength to it. But yeah, we'll go ahead, select all these connectors, add to a new folder, and we'll call this 5-inch connectors. Keep that the same. Cool. So we'll go ahead, Control Q, Control S for rebuild and save. The hardware that I have in my computer isn't that good. So that's the magic of video editing. I can just edit out all my rebuild times and whatnot. But cool. I have my panels that I've created, and I have my back panel that has machining in there. So I can go ahead, hide that, and if I'm looking at this back panel, I can see that I have all of those female side of that connector machined out. So yeah, when I go to cut that on the CNC, these features are going to be recognized, and I'll be able to cut that out. And all of that is parametrically driven. So if there is a change that I need to process, if I need to change these offsets, it's super quick and easy, super fast. That's the power of SWOOD, baby. So yeah, we have that there. So basically, now what we want to do, we want to, we can do a number of things. Like we can add in stretchers, and the stretchers are maybe what would be mounted to your feature wall. So yeah, maybe I'll add that in real quick. I have a connector that does pretty well. It it'll automatically insert a cleating system. So what we'll do, we're going to select the top of this feature and the bottom of this feature, and we're going to create a mid-plane. So this mid-plane here, right down the middle of this feature. And what we want to do, we'll make this longer, and we're going to rename this to be mid-plane. So yeah, we're going to drop in another SWOOD panel. So we'll come back in. We want this one to be 3/4 inch MDF. So we'll insert a copy. We'll select back, and we're just going to drag this into place. So we want the bottom of this panel here, and what we're going to do, we're going to create offsets off the side that are 1 inch. Switch that offset. Do the same over here. Select on here, put in 1 inch offset over here. And then this last arrow we left unconstrained. I'm going to edit this with the edit panel feature. So we'll go ahead, select check. Cool. This is still fully defined. So for this edit panel, I'm going to make this 4 inches wide as opposed to 6.9. So cool, that's there. So now what I want to do, I'm going to create a copy of this, and I'm going to show you guys that make independent ability in real time. I made a video on this, so check it out if you haven't seen this before. But basically it's a real quick way to make a copy of a panel, but making it independent allows you to edit it independently without affecting the original copy. So cool. We have back_1 wave wall 2, so I'm going to do back_2 wave wall 2. Save that there. So now this panel is independent, so we're just going to mate it into place. Go ahead and mate that there. My computer is being slow. We're going to mate this to this left plane, or actually right plane, so we'll show that plane here. And this is going to be just the same, so we want this right and this right constrained. Cool. And then finally, we want the top of this panel, or actually, what will it be? Not the front, but the back, mated to that midplane. Cool. So that's made into place. That's all there. I can go ahead and hide these planes because I don't need them at the moment. And I'm going to drop in another connector. This one I just have as a rabbet. So I'm going to insert that in between these two panels here. And basically all that's doing is creating that French cleat. So that way one side will be mounted to the wall and the other will not. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that. As you can see, I'd likely have, this one would be mounted to the feature here, so probably be screwed in here. This one would be mounted to the wall, wherever we'd want to hang it, and then we just like slot that into place. And for like structural integrity, probably what I would do is I'd move all these features to like here, add one more French cleat at the bottom and one at the top. And what I would probably do is I would install this back panel, well actually the stretcher first, or excuse me, I would install the French cleat, the one mounted to the wall first, and then from there I would install the back panel with the stretchers attached to it, and then I would mount that onto the French cleats. And then finally, once I've done that, I would take each one of these perpendicular panels. I'd have this labeled like 1 through 30. And I would just go in a row and be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. And basically, the reason for that is that way that giant back panel doesn't weigh 1,000,000 tons when you go to mount that onto your structure, you know? You could just mount that back panel, which is probably by itself like 40 to 60 pounds. And then each one of these panels, which is probably, I don't know. I'm not very good at gauging the weights for these, but yeah. So yeah, we have that installed. So now what we want to do, since this is a frame, this is like the original copy. So now we want to drop this into a like working assembly. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and I'm going to open one of my working assemblies here. So I have that under my SWOOD with A-Rod library, and I believe it's this one here. So as you can see, this is that original wave wall. And now we have a second copy. And actually, before I do this, I need to save this. And I need to close out of this. And I'm going to insert. You know what? I don't want to do it like this. I'm actually going to close out of this. I'll go ahead and delete this bad boy here. And instead of creating a copy, I'm just going to hold Control and drag this wave wall assembly into place. And when I hold Control, it just creates a copy of that original assembly. So this is not the original. And the reason I can tell is I can insert another copy if I wanted to. If this was the original, it wouldn't allow me to do that. So cool. So basically what we want to do, made this into place. We'll rearrange this, make this distance off the floor. Oh, hold up. I made that coincident. Whatever. Coincidence fine for now. And then we'll go ahead. We'll actually do a distance mate from this edge to this edge. And we'll make this 36 seems, apparently 36 seems like a good number. So cool, we have our feature wall here. So yeah, that's awesome. Like this would probably be far enough to create like a design drawing off of. Have fun creating like parametric drawing references to each one of these panels. I don't know if that's possible. You can probably make a sweet rendering and portray that to your client if you wanted to. So now what I'm going to show you guys is just how to make this manufacturable and like drop it down on the CNC. Because as of right now, technically this assembly is made up of 4 parts, and those 4 parts being the back panel. All of these parts are technically, or all these bodies are technically one part, which we need these to be each an individual part, and then we have the 2 stretchers, which are fine. So what we're going to do, we're going to open up this assembly. So this is a copy, again, not the original frame. And what we'll do, we want to start off with doing a save bodies operation. And what that does, I'll open the part in position. It'll make each one of these its own part, but it's referencing this original part file. So if I like make a parametric change, let's say I wanted to like change the design of this wave and make it like a little less aggressive. When I do that and I go to my like save bodies assembly, those changes will be updated and I can still like edit my assembly file there. So what we'll do, we're gonna hit the S key, search save bodies. We have that there. Go ahead, save the whole assembly. If I were doing this like officially, I'd want to change like where this was saved to and save it to like a specific point. But since it's just an example, I'm not going to go through the process of like saving each one with each individual name. That's just going to take too long for me. So I'm going to select the origin location, and I want to create an assembly out of this. That way it's like easy to import into my nesting assembly. So right now I'm going to go to my environment with walls, and I'm going to create a new folder. And in this folder, what I want to do, I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call this perp parts, perpendicular parts. And then I'll go into that assembly and I'll call this P/part assembly. Cool. So go ahead, save that. That just saves the location of that assembly file. This is important because if you don't do this, you're just going to have like a large assortment of parts saved to like wherever your main assembly is. But it's not actually going to be associated into an assembly file. So yeah, I'll go ahead, hit OK. This will process and create an assembly file with all these parts within it. It's going to take a second too. So this is still technically one part, but we now have an assembly, and I'll go ahead and open that now. Wherever I save that, perpendicular parts, rebuild. So now this is an assembly, and these are each individual part files, which is awesome because this is how we need it to be to cut on the CNC. So we'll keep that open. We don't have to keep it open, but just for simplicity's sake. And what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and nest this file. But there's a couple things I need to do first. I need to make sure that these panels are nesting and this one is not. So to do that, I have custom properties. So I run this little macro that like propagates the custom properties of all the parts in my file. And I need to include all the parts that I want nested in nesting, and this one I do not want included in nesting. So I'll go ahead and save that. And we're going to jump over to our other assembly file, so this is the one with all the individual parts, we're going to do that same macro, come over, and all of these parts should be included in nesting, and the way I have it, it's default anyway. So we'll keep that as is. We can close out of that if we want. All right, cool. So now we're going to jump over to SWOOD Cam, go to nesting. It says, do you want to add the active document to the nesting sources? We'll hit check. And we have, so as you can see, this grayed out one is not included in our nest. And we want to add our source file to that perpendicular panels part, which I think this is the right one. Yeah, I think it's this. No. Where was that? No, perp parts, this one. So now that that's in there, we'll go ahead, rebuild. And it's going to create a nesting file for all of those panels. Whoa. All right, cool. So yeah, this is our nesting file. So when we jump over to the nesting result, all of our parts for nesting, none of them had an error. So we know that all of them worked. If we had like red panels here, we would know they're like either the origin isn't in the right place or the Z up is in the wrong place. So we just need to address that for those specific panels, but we have no red panels selected, so we know that all the panels that we have nested are in this nested selection. So we can go ahead. Yeah, if you were doing this officially, you'd probably update a lot of these values. For me, I'm not going to worry about it because I'm not actually cutting these. So I'll go ahead, hit that green check mark. It's going to create a separate nesting assembly. Then we could start dropping toolpaths onto that. So cool. We jump over to our nesting interface and we can see, so these are our 1/2-inch panels. So yeah, all of these can be cut out. One thing to notice, like when I did that, that split using that plane, like if I look at the panels, like you can see that they're kind of cut on an angle. There's a couple different options. Like if you wanted to keep this angled cut, you probably need some form of a pot and rail machine. So that way you can have some five axis functionability to come through and actually cut these on an angle. I have only, actually the only CNC machine that I've had access to, like me personally, I have done some programming on like pot and rail machine, but the one that I've actually been able to operate has been a nesting machine. So for this, I'd probably just do a contouring toolpath, and it's just gonna cut these panels squared off as they are. So like as you see them here, it'll just come out and cut that, whatever's sticking out the furthest, it would keep that contour profile. Kind of an overview, like from creating that wave wall, using SWOOD tools, kind of my workflow of creating that geometric shape, doing save bodies operation to make all of those parts, and then finally dropping that into the nesting file. And then from here, yeah, basically you would just come in. I don't have any tools or like tool paths created for this library. But yeah, you could just like drag and drop your pre-created tool paths and start cutting these panels out. That's this week's video. Thank you guys for staying tuned, and yeah, catch you guys on the next one. Peace.